Hey, mamas. Welcome back to the Knit Your Stress Away podcast. I'm your host, Nadine Medina. And today we're going to talk about a mindset shift. If you have ever found yourself overwhelmed, constantly putting everyone else first, and feeling guilty for even just thinking about doing something just for you, then this episode is for you. Let's dive in because I know most of you and me need this mindset shift and a reminder for it for sure. So let's go. Welcome to Knit Your Stress Away. Are you a mom who feels overwhelmed, craving a creative outlet, but unsure where to start or how to fit it into your already packed day? I have dedicated this podcast to help you discover practical, guilt-free self-care strategies through the calming practice of knitting. I'll help you break free from the overwhelm, quiet the noise and comparison of social media, empowering you to pick up your knitting needles instead and embrace moments of rest, creativity, and mindfulness. Hi, I'm Nadine, a mom, wife, and passionate knitter. I first learned to knit as a teenager from my grandmother back in Germany, but for some reason, I put my needles down in my 20s. It wasn't until 2020, when everyone was searching for ways to ease the anxiety of the unknown, that I picked knitting back up, and something amazing happened. I found peace and joy in the cozy, calming rhythm of knitting, and now I'm so excited to share my practical tips and habits with you so you can reclaim your time, recharge, and rediscover the things that bring you happiness. It's time to ditch the endless scroll on social media and focus on what truly matters, your well-being. So if you're ready to take control of your stress, ditch overwhelm and social media comparison, rekindle your creativity, and recharge with a hobby you love, this podcast will guide you every step of the way. Take a deep breath, grab your knitting needles, and let's start creating a life with less stress and more joy, one stitch at a time. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm so grateful that you are here during this Thanksgiving week. I feel even more gratitude for having done this podcast for almost a year now and having so many loyal listeners here. I'm just overwhelmed and I just want to say thank you. So I hope you are enjoying your holiday week already. Maybe you're still working, you're still busy, most likely because we're moms, right? That's kind of a segue into this episode, I guess. We're going to dive into a much needed mindset shift today, which is from going from feeling overwhelmed and also guilty for taking time for ourselves, which I know that so many of us are struggling with, to actually embracing creativity and joy in self-care. I want to share why this shift is so essential for your well-being and how finding a creative outlet like knitting can bring the calm and fulfillment that you've been craving. It's this, being a mom, we're always in go mode. We're juggling everything from family to work. And if we're not working, right, we don't maybe necessarily have a job, but we're stay-at-home moms. The household, the kids, maybe you're homeschooling. There's just so much and there's never an end in sight, it seems like. So it's not a surprise that many of us feel overwhelmed and stretched too thin. And that's not news. But what I used to struggle with so much is that I actually deserve to sit down and take time for myself, even though it felt like and it seemed like there was none. Like I obviously don't have any time left that I can, take for myself, sitting down and doing something nice that I actually enjoy, to the point where oftentimes as mom, we don't even remember what that is. Like, what do I enjoy doing? So I give you two examples. Two of the things that I now, at this point in my life, enjoy the most, or one of the most, right, is knitting, obviously, and reading. Novels, not self-improvement books or business books or any of those kinds. I used to read those like crazy, but there's not much relaxing about those books. I love losing myself in a really good story. And I used to enjoy that as much as knitting back in my 20s when I was commuting to work back in Germany. I was commuting from Heidelberg to Frankfurt on a train every single day. It was altogether from the place where I lived, which wasn't even in Heidelberg in the city. So it was like outside of Heidelberg. So I had to take a bus, a train, and another train, and then a streetcar, and then I had to walk. It's kind of like trains, planes, and automobiles, which is fitting because it's Thanksgiving week. Anyway, long story short, I had all this time on the train and I was knitting and I was reading and I was loving it. And you may have heard me talk about this before, that I just kind of stopped doing those things once I became a mom. It took a little while for me to kind of dig myself out of the new mom stage, of course, and that's nothing unusual at all. But this moment when you completely forget what you used to love doing, right? And for some of us, it takes a long time to actually get back to that. And even then, even when we do realize, oh, yeah, I enjoy reading a novel, like a real story, or I enjoy knitting, or I enjoy crocheting, or cooking, or baking, or whatever it is, sewing, maybe, does not immediately mean that we're making time for it, because most of us feel that crazy guilt of like, how dare I sit down and do this now for myself when everything is still piling up? The place is not clean. There's always going to be something to do. And I just said this to my husband this week, where I was like, it's interesting because the list of things that we have to do every single week and every single day, it doesn't ever end. Like you never get to the bottom of that list and say, okay, so now I'm done. And now what? It's just not how it works. So we have to find a different way to truly embrace the fact that we as moms, specifically we as moms, need that time to recharge, to replenish, so that we can then pour back out into our families, into our work, and into people around us, right? But if we only do that and we never recharge, it's just a recipe for burnout. So let's dive into this episode and this mindset shift. Because the truth is that you are absolutely allowed to have time for you. And that's not just time to take a quick shower or grab a quick coffee, but actual intentional time spent doing something that really lights you up and that brings you joy. So for me, like I just said, that would be knitting, that would be reading. Those are two things that I could pick up at any time. And if I was to I actually asked this question in the knitting community the other day, but if you were to fill an entire day with just things that you enjoy doing, with no regard to how much time it takes, how much money it would cost. Let's just, we can knit with all the yarn you want, or what that would mean in practicality for your life and what would actually get left, And for me, it would just be reading as much as I can and knitting as much as I can. And I would be completely happy. So that's just a side note for me, but it could be whatever else does bring you joy, right? But it is a big mind shift to go from feeling guilty for taking me time to actually enjoying it. There's a long process here, and it's not something that you can do like you switching on a light in your room. It takes time, right? But the shift is essential to our well-being, and it is what will keep you from feeling burned out or resentful in the long run. So that's why it's so important. And a quick side note here, in order to actually, make progress on this transformation of your mindset, it is a really good idea to kind of have an affirmation, or maybe even multiple affirmations, somewhere where you can see them every day. Because let me tell you, as much as you know that this is what you're supposed to do and that this is something that's good for you, that does not mean automatically that your mind is going there immediately. Your mind will always go back to the default, to the story that you've been telling yourself for many years, where it's like, nope, can't sit down. Nope, not for me. Nope, can't take time for myself. Nope, too many things I still got to do. Trust me when I say this, you will always default back to that. How do I know that? Because I do it. I do it all the time. And I have to actively take my thoughts from that place and back to the, no, it's okay. Because all that stuff will still be there later, right? For some of us, this might mean that we have to put it on the schedule, on the calendar, and be extremely intentional and organized so that the things that we really need to get done that keep our house and our family kind of afloat and working well, those things have to get done. So they also have to get scheduled. We need to remove distractions. We have to remove phone scrolling time that is unnecessary, that wastes a bunch of time. All that stuff needs to go so that you can then fill that time with the things that you want to do and the things that are going to recharge you. I don't know about you, but scrolling my phone and scrolling Instagram never does that for me. It does not recharge me. It leaves me feeling more drained. So I try to limit my time in there and get in and get out. And that's it. I like to interact on there, but not for too long because it's just going to drain my energy. So that's just a little tip. Have on a piece of paper this mindset shift. Like, hey, I deserve this rest. This is for me. Yes, I can take these 15 minutes. I can take these 30 minutes right here. I will finish the laundry after that. It's totally okay. All right. So just continue to kind of get your own thinking and your own brain used to this thought. It does take time. It isn't an overnight thing. And you do have to put the work in to actually change those thoughts for you. So let's talk about the benefits of a creative outlet for those times that you are actually going to take for yourself. Obviously, this is where knitting comes in, because in my opinion, it is not just a hobby that you are just going to go through the motions and do. It's a stress relief. It's a form of stress relief. And for busy moms, knitting is very easy to learn if you don't know it yet. It's one of my favorite parts about it. It's portable and you can do it anywhere you want. You can take it anywhere. And that could mean, waiting for your kids somewhere or wherever that might be, whatever age your kids are, and you can actually wait for them maybe in the car or while they're at some sort of class or practice. You can sit on the sidelines and you can just knit. I did that last night. I was talking to another mom and I was knitting away. It was amazing. Like, that relaxes me completely. And if you're worried that you just don't know where to start with knitting, or you kind of want to get back into it and you're a little worried that you might not know how to, I've got you. I know that some of you may have tried meditation or maybe even yoga, and it felt like it just didn't stick. It's not like for you. That's possible, but don't feel defeated about that. There are other things to try. So knitting, in my opinion, is different because it's creative. It's actually a productive thing. So your brain is almost getting tricked into thinking that you're doing something. You're actually doing something. It's not like, oh, I'm just sitting here doing nothing and it feels like a waste. And while I'm trying to meditate, all I'm thinking is, oh gosh, I just need to use this time differently. I can't just be sitting here. That's completely counterproductive to the meditation practice. But when you knit, your brain feels productive because you're actually making something, you're creating something, but it's still calming and it has a very similar effect to a meditation, which is so cool, right? And it doesn't require the same kind of focus or quiet that you might need with meditation. You also don't need any kids to interrupt you when you meditate because that's also really annoying. But when you knit, you can still chat with your kids and you can still talk to them and they can be around you, they can play, whatever. And so you get the best of both worlds, and you do not have to carve out this time that you may or may not get where it's super quiet. You would have to get up super early in the morning or do it super late at night. This you can do wherever. And maybe you're already in the place where you're like, yes, I'm ready to start learning how to knit. I have got something for you. I'm going to tell you at the end of this episode. But maybe you're a mom who is having a hard time to remember what actually brings her joy outside of, the responsibilities, the everyday responsibilities. I would suggest to start by reflecting on what used to make you feel excited or relaxed, something that you used to enjoy doing that you could easily maybe pick back up. It's just something that got forgotten. This is what happened with me and knitting. It was the weirdest thing. I did not even think about the fact that I loved knitting. As a matter of fact, it was the same with reading. So funny. I remember this day, this is a while ago. My kids were really still little, but I hadn't read a novel in a couple of years because had one kid moved from Germany to the United States in 2008, had another kid in 2009. And so I think it was maybe in 2011, I went to a friend's house who also had little kids, and I was at her house to grab a cup of coffee and the kids had a play date. And as I walked out, I walked past her couch and I saw a book, an open novel, a German one, but too, because she was German as well, living here in Virginia. And I was like, wait a minute, that's awesome. And all of a sudden it just came back to me. I was like, oh my gosh, I used to read. I used to read so much. I used to read on my commute train, multiple books per week because it was such a long commute. And I remember loving it. And it just immediately, I went home and I looked for my books. I'm like, where are these things? There got to be somewhere. And, made sure that I would get some in the mail. So that was just such a fun moment because I quite literally had forgotten that was one of the things that I truly enjoyed doing. And I haven't stopped reading since. And then a few years ago, I picked up reading like more intensely with, like I said, with more novels. And I actually set a goal for myself throughout the year that I'm trying to work towards without making it stressful, obviously. But I do want to make sure that that reading is always kind of at the top of my mind to go to, especially when I'm zoning out and I'm checking social media instead of actually grabbing things that I like doing. So there's that. And then, of course, the same goes for knitting. And this was actually years later. This was in 2020, as you may have heard me talk about before. I saw a bunch of knitted projects and really gorgeous pieces coming across my Instagram and was like, wait a minute, I know this. I know how to do this. And not only do I know how to knit, I actually remember loving it. And these pieces look so cozy and so pretty. Wow, what if I could make that with my own hands? Like, just the thought of that made me feel so excited. And I had to pick it up and I had to try out if it was still something that I enjoy doing. Turns out I did. But I want to encourage you to kind of go there and see if you can find something that you used to enjoy. Maybe it is knitting, maybe it's crocheting, maybe it's sewing, maybe it's something less, boring sounding. Trust me, that's really just a joke because none of it is boring. There's so much challenge in these hobbies. I just love it so much. But I also want to encourage you that if you can't find anything, or if there's something that is maybe not as practical that you used to enjoy, I want you to not be afraid to try new things. Even if you've never even touched a knitting needle before, it's never too late to pick it up as a new hobby that is actually simple to learn, accessible, and very stress relieving. So give yourself permission to try this out, to see if it's for you, and also to really enjoy the time for yourself. You deserve to have something that is just for you, something that brings you peace and fulfillment. And I'm here to help guide you and hold your hand to find this thing. If it's knitting, lovely. You've found it. You're here and you can learn it now, right? As a matter of fact, you can learn it right now. So let's talk about that, because I do have something really excited to help you get started. It actually happens next week at the time of this recording. It's happening next week on December 4th, 2024 at 10 a.m. EST. I am teaching my very first live workshop called Knitting Made Simple for Busy Moms. And it's exactly what you need in order to start this beautiful and cozy hobby in a very short amount of time. It's a 1-hour workshop, and I know that you will leave this workshop feeling confident that you can knit your very first project, and you will also be free from that overwhelm of trying to figure it out on your own, if that's something that you've been doing. And you're ready to embrace knitting as your new go-to stress reliever, which I am probably the most excited about. I'm excited for you to learn it or dust off your memory. Is that how you say that in English? To kind of refresh your skills, but also you're going to discover that this is the absolutely amazing stress reliever that you've been looking for. It will take some learning, of course. You're not going from I don't know anything to, yay, this is so relaxing. There's a little bit in between there, and I want you to be aware of that so that you're not disappointed. Obviously, it will take some practice. It will take some time to learn it. But the cool thing about this workshop is you can either show up with needles and yarn already in tow, so that you can use it right away while we're in the workshop and I'm teaching how to do it. If you decide not to do that, or, it's maybe too late to get it, not a problem at all, because you will get full access to the recording after the fact. So even if you're not able to make it, you will get the recording. Obviously, it will be so much more fun to show up live, but nonetheless, you have the recording and you can then use your tools, which, by the way, I have the exact links for where you can get them and which ones they are. And you can continue practicing and going through the recording over and over and really truly get into practicing the stitches and making sure that you that you master the basics. And then you also have access to our community, of course, where we're going to help you through any issues that you might be facing. So you can save your seat for the Knitting Made Simple for Busy Moms workshop at theknittingmamas.com/workshop. I can't wait to see you in there next week. It's going to be so much fun and you are going to learn so much. This is what I'm going to leave you with. I want you to remember that you are worthy of taking time for yourself, that it is not selfish. It's absolutely necessary. And it's also okay to rediscover what brings you joy and calm. And I would love to help you make that shift. So save this episode just in case you're going to need that pep talk again, where it's okay. It's okay. You can take that time. The dishes can wait. The laundry can wait. The dirty floor can wait. It's absolutely fine. Nothing needs to be perfect, but you need to be healthy and you need to be refreshed and recharged and ready to take on the craziness that is your daily life. I know that's true because it's the same here. So I'm in the same boat. I'm all with you here. And I need this reminder just as much as you do. So I hope this episode was helpful to you. If you have a friend who might benefit from the same mindset shift from this pep talk, even if they're not ready to get into a creative hobby, share this episode with them. It's hopefully going to make their day a little bit better. And I wish you a happy Thanksgiving here. If you're here in the United States, obviously, if you are not, you just have a regular Thursday, which happy Thursday. And I will hopefully see some of you guys in the live workshop next week on December 4th. Until then, have a wonderful rest of your week and talk to you soon. Thanks so much for hanging out with me on today's episode. I hope you're walking away with a bit more inspiration and a few ideas to make your self-care a priority. If today's chat gave you a little boost, I'd love it if you could leave a 5-star review on iTunes. This helps other moms discover the podcast and start finding more calm and creativity in their day as well. And don't forget to join us over in the Knitting Mamas community on Facebook by going to theknittingmamas.com/group. Thanks again, and remember, you deserve time for yourself to recharge and feel your best. Catch you next time on the Knit the Stress Away podcast.